I'm Jim Bell, and I do engineering for both of the Caymans and the Pirelli World Challenge. My duties basically are to make sure that the car, according to my understanding of the competition setup, that the cars are competitively set up in the direction I think they need to be for the track. I have to keep up with the tire, the pressures, and of course the compounding that we're going to use, when we're going to use new tires and so forth, and just go through the basic race prep in the sessions, the practice sessions and the qualifying sessions to get the car as competitive as we can tune it to be before the race. I kind of had a flair for working on cars when I was in high school, and I started drag racing in California. I'm from Southern California originally, and I actually got hooked up with some really good drag racers who are really good racers, and I started learning from them, and I started driving, and I was the greatest race car driver you'd ever heard of. And so I drove for a couple of years, and then some of those guys started working on sports cars. And so I said, it can't be all bad if they're doing it. And I was lucky enough to mentor under some of them. And so I learned my way and actually got a job, helping, as a mechanic basically. I've worked on teams that have been very successful, and I've been fortunate enough to work under some very good people. We won the 24 Hours of Le Mans overall in a Group 5 car in 1979. I was Mechanic of the Year in '79 in IMSA. And then we won the 24 Hours of Daytona on several occasions in category. And we won it overall also as Bell Motorsports. We won about 4 championships and a lot of endurance races.
When I met Jim in 1996, I think it was, the first time we worked together, even though it was he didn't know me, I didn't know him, he didn't trust me, I didn't trust him. It was like, I thought I was the best, he thought he was the best. It was like this major butting heads. I came away from that weekend realizing that he could take the information that I was giving him and interpret it to make changes on the car, and that the car actually went faster. And that was, I'd never had that before. I'd never had a relationship like that with anybody. And so that started a relationship that is now 20 years old. And we've won a lot of championships together and a lot of races together.
What I like most about my job is the racing. When we put everything together correctly and we get the results. It's too much money and too much work not to get results, so I'm very results oriented. Somebody has to be in charge of the car going fast, and I like it a lot when I'm that guy and the cars go fast.
Yeah, Jim knows everything. He's very good engineer. He's helping me a lot too.
He knows everything there is to know about chassis design and engineering setups, and he's been great to work with and teach. He's been trying to teach me everything. He hasn't smacked me too hard yet for not knowing what I'm talking about.
A lot of the technology now is canned, if you know what I mean. They're homologating these cars to where the factory says this is the car you're going to have to run and you can't change anything on it. So it's pretty frustrating sometimes when there's a better car in there and they won't allow you to exploit those things. So not being able to adjust the car to the levels that it could be adjusted is pretty frustrating. But it's also very challenging. And to be competitive, everybody's sort of in the same car. So to be better than those people on the same kind of tracks, it's up to the driver and of course up to the setup. So that's challenging.
Jim is very analytical about what he does. He's very precise. He asks for a lot of information from the data, and one of the great things, there's engineers that have to look at data and decipher it and try and figure it out. Jim is one of those guys that can, on the fly, in pit lane, get some feedback from the driver, make an adjustment, and make a change. And he's been really good for our guys. He's good with both Rodrigo and Nate, and he's been able to really put those cars in a good spot.
My advice to people that want to do what I do, basically, they probably don't really understand what the job is, and they need to research that to a degree. I went back to school after I figured out I wasn't going to be a driver because I was never going to have the money to sit in cars that I thought were going to be competitive. I went back and I took the engineering and so forth. Almost none of it helped me in my job. It's very difficult to get it out of a book. There's a lot of There's a lot of experience necessary under a lot of variables that you have to sort. It's very complicated to actually manage the variables that you have to manage all the time. And most people don't understand that. They don't really understand what we do. It's not really anymore as much engineering as it is tuning. So people who want to do what I do, I would tell them to research what I do completely and correctly, because it's not real apparent what the real work is. The experience is everything, and that is the education. You've actually got to be at the track to see what the job is and how to do the job, and to get efficient at it.
The guy has run every race car known to man, and he just brings so much experience here to the team. You learn something every day about some sort of race car at some point. He knows what's going on, he knows where he wants to do. He's very good with setting up these cars and getting us where we need to be speed-wise, and you learn something from him.
My favorite thing about Flying Lizard, I think, is probably the consistency. They try hard, they show up prepared, they look the way they're supposed to look, they work the way they're supposed to work, the maintenance is consistent, so I would have to say the consistency. I do a lot of shows. I do about 32 weekends a year between testing and racing, so I'm on the road a lot. But I live in the Keys, and I fish and dive and like to run fast boats a lot, so that's what I try to do when I'm not at the races. Put a grin on my face.
You ready?
I don't know, we'll see.
Jim, what can you say about Jim Bell that somebody hasn't said about him?
Oh boy.
Oh man. Is Jim here? He's not? All right.
Where do I start with him?
It is like nothing I've ever experienced in my life.
So I'm pretty sure Jim engineered/designed the dirt that we walk and drive on now.
Yeah, we're not too loud for you over there, are we?
It's like a bad marriage. It's like, I don't know.
What advice do you have for others who would like to have your job?
Go have their head examined.
Jim can talk forever. And he loves to talk about the old days too. So.
Or maybe it's the money. Or the hotels we stay at.
Might have to cut some out. So when I'm talking with Jim, once he starts going on a tangent this way, I just change the subject and then we go that way. And then he starts going this way, so I go back that way. Seriously.